kind of, mostly. All right, I'm very, very excited to have Chris here tonight. You guys have heard me say that. From the time he told me what he accomplished, I was so happy for him. Oh, I thought, this is great, you know? We got somebody who's like taking the idea. So I'm an architect kind of person, so I never actually realized that I never deliver any products, right? So the only thing I ever do is have a dream, and eventually, every so often, once in a million hours, somebody actually uses something that I thought of, right? So this, you know, otherwise it's all kind of just like wasted effort and fun to think about. But the man here, he actually took something the club built. They built a remote station, and then he brought a laptop, and he installed the software, and he registered for it, and he logged on, and then at the end of it all, he used it. He got on the radio. He transmitted and received. I can't believe it. I mean, I often hear that's what amateurs do. But it's amazing how much they just are and they don't teach. So anyway, with that, I'm going to set the bar even higher.
Thanks, Jim.
Go. It's all yours.
Thank you. So, as Jim said, I had intended to do the extra class in the fall. We didn't have enough people, so I took my registration fee and applied it to going to Jim's remote ham session, where he covered using the remote station. And while we were there, he showed us how to do like PSK 31 and RIDI and all of those. And I thought, well, you know, I wonder if I can do this with FT8. I'd heard about it, and I read up on how to do it, and the software to use, and I used some of the stuff that Jim recommended, and I just decided to kind of go forward with it. So we'll go through some of the software that's required for it. There was a nice article in QST in January about it. I'll pass this around if you want to take a look at it. It has some of the details on how it works. And without further ado, I'm not going to over PowerPoint you, but this has some details. So this is from the same developers that did JT65 and JT9. It's named for those developers, Stephen Frank, K9AN, and Joe Taylor, K1JT. One of the nice things like JT65 and JT9 is it can work on like high noise environments. You can pick up, you know, with an SNR of about -20 dB. Uses a small amount of bandwidth. Unlike JT65 and JT9, the transmit receive cycles are 15 seconds each. So conversations go very fast in FT8. And I'll show you, I have it running in the background here just to make sure it was going to work. And you can do a complete QSO in less than 2 minutes.
I got to put on my remote reading glasses.
You can do a complete QSO in less than 2 minutes. So you saw the title of it, Do You FT8? Very small conversations. You're exchanging very little information, not for rag chewing.
Like Twitter.
Exactly. So here's a snapshot. I did this February 21st. This is built into the program, and it shows you kind of the how many people were active on each of the bands on each JT65, JT9, and FT8. You can see that while the green and the pink numbers may have been large at one point, they've all, for the most part, migrated over to FT8. So at one point, there were 822 kind of, I think these are call signs on 20 meters when I pulled that up. And I think this was during the day. So there's a lot of conversation, and it's across all the bands. So here are the frequencies. Everything operates on upper sideband. That's in that article that I'm passing around. These are the frequencies that everybody uses. The software that Joe Taylor wrote to interpret these has these as memories basically in the software. You don't have to remember them. You can just select which band you're going to operate on. And as long as you have it set to control your rig, it'll automatically tune you to that. So, how do you play? RemoteHams software, unless you have your own rig at home. I don't. I have a 6-year-old and 4-year-old, so I have no disposable income.
Those are great rigs, though.
Yeah. If you are, you know, if you don't have, I'm running virtual audio cable on my laptop to pipe the speaker and the microphone through the computer through the software. That was a recommendation from Jim. Or you can use a local rig. WSJT-X, that's the software written by those guys that will interpret FT8. It'll also do Whisper and JT65, JT9. I also use a program called JT Alert X, which runs together with WSJT-X. Gives you a little bit more alerting. It, as you go through and you log contacts, it adds them kind of into your local database so you can tell if you've worked them before, or if it's a new DXCC, you know, new state, whatever. And I didn't realize I put virtual audio cable twice. So a typical exchange your grid square, not the full Maidenhead, but the, like for example, FM17. Signal report exchange, Roger, 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 and 73s. That's it. FT8, as I said, is not a mode for rag chewing. So this is the software that you have to have to interpret it, along with, you know, either your local rig or your remote ham station. You can see on the left-hand side there, that's the band activity. It's using the subaudible tones and interpreting those to get all the, so you can, you're running on a single frequency, but you're using the subaudible tones to interpret, you know, to decode the different call signs. So you can see there's a fair amount going on there. And when I pull up the live demo, you'll see it just kind of light up the screen. This will also do colors to tell you if you've worked, you know, if it's a DXCC entity, or, you know, it'll tell you what country in that band activity that call sign's from. It's pretty nice. Right here, you can do a fair amount of auto sequencing of your whole conversation. So if you're responding to an individual, like right there, you can see at the top, I was responding to an OE2 LCM. If you double click on them in the list, it'll automatically start with that first line. When they respond with their signal report, it'll automatically jump to the second line, auto transmit that. Once those are exchanged, you get it'll automatically, so it just moves down the list. The only one it won't do automatically is your CQ at the bottom.
So, Chris, that's kind of an important thing, right? Because, I mean, the exchanges are so fast.
Yes, it'd be hard to keep up with.
Right?
So the auto sequencing, and I think you can set it, so you can uncheck that box if you want to play it a little more difficult. There's a box right there underneath the report that says auto sequence right here. You can turn that off, but you're kind of playing with fire there. I wouldn't do that. So here's what a waterfall looks like. You can see across the board, it's pretty busy.
So how wide a band, within the band, how wide a band would be using?
So the subaudible tones, I guess, are
4KC?
4KC? No.
Yeah, so that's 200 hertz up to 1800 hertz.
Okay.
So this was just a snapshot. So WSJT-X comes with a waterfall. And you can see up here, I don't know if you can see the red bracket that's kind of pointing down, and you can't really see it, but there's a green one right underneath that. The red is your transmit tone, and the green is your receive. Oh, there's the green. The green is your receive tone. One of the important things that they recommend with FT8 is that you do split, because a lot of times it's easier to pull, you know, to finish your communication if you split. So transmit on a different subaudible tone than you're receiving the individual on. It doesn't really matter in the software. The software is looking for call signs to see if how your conversation is going. So here's JT Alert X. This you can set to ride right underneath your WSJT-X. So you can see it's picking up all the call signs that it's decoded. And down here at the bottom, depending on how much you've worked, it'll tell you if you have that DXCC entity and on what band you've worked them on, and if you've picked up the call sign already. And if you have it linked into QRZ, it'll give you their information with their grid square. So it's supported by Logbook of the World, QRZ, EQSL, HRD can log FT8. I think the version before it became, they started charging an outrageous amount for a subscription fee. I think you have to add it as a special kind of entry in there to support FT8 for your logging purposes.
For lot building?
What's that? No, for HRD, if you're using HRD.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, let's try a live demo. Well, let me show you what, while Jim was speaking, and I was paying attention, but
Right.
I responded to a conversation from a new DXCC from Serbia. And so you can see the conversation up here. This is not a screenshot, this is all live. So he was communicating with somebody from SQ6. And a lot of times if it's a DXCC that is kind of rare, where you don't have, you'll see a lot of people trying to communicate with them. So you're, just like in a pilot, you're trying to get in there to get that conversation going. So again, all these where I'm exchanging my grid square, that's all happening automatically. So at about this point where it's red, that's where that person responds to me. Gives me their signal report. I give them my signal report to them. They give me a roger, 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 and I give them a 73. And that's it. That's the whole conversation. Once the software, I don't remember if it's WJT or JT Alert X, once it picks up my 73, it automatically pops up saying, hey, do you want to log this? And it can log, mine logs automatically to QRZ, and then I have it pass over to Logbook of the World, or I send it over to Logbook of the World at the same time. So that's that conversation. While we've been sitting here, these have been running. So we'll just let it sit for a second, but you can see, watch down at the bottom, it's probably a little easier to see. But if you watch down here at the bottom, assuming Jim's radio hasn't disconnected me, you'll see a bunch of things pop up down there. Let's make sure we're still connected.
How, do you choose who you want to contact though?
Yeah, well, unless you do a CQ and then they're just gonna ping you instead.
And then how does it know who to respond to if there's a bunch of people? Just kind of...
You just pick who you want to respond to. You can do multiple people. You just have to kind of keep track. Really, it's all about just double clicking the decoded entry in the.
And if somebody else gets them first, then it keeps trying.
Yeah, and you can just come back to them if you see them in the list. I mean, this. Oops.
How much power are you running?
I think you don't have to run high power. I think oh, I see what's happening. I've lost the connection. That waterfall, that's not how the waterfall's supposed to work. So it's not really listening.
Oh, this is.
How much power were you running?
I have his right now at 100%. I don't know, what kind of power do you have in here?
That's 100 watts.
100 watts. You don't really need that much. Sometimes I forget to dial it back a little bit.
So this is basically just contesting, but it's on a much faster scale.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You're just hitting and running.
Let's do this. Let me disconnect and reconnect.
So, in other words, got it, yeah.
So you
So
run
this-
all states?
Yes, and I'll show you that in just a second. So this is the RemoteHams software. Some of you probably have already know all about this. Just trying to connect back to Jim's radio. So
It's a flash application.
Jim, you missed a line this morning between 4 and 5 a.m.
Yeah, I'm sure I did.
all right, so let me show you this. So right here, this is what I was talking about. That's my shortcut. This is a little shortcut to auto-tune to whatever band you want to listen to. So I'm just going to jump to 40 meters. And obviously in the background, it's automatically tuned me. Again, like I said, mode is upper side band. Sometimes I found it's tricky with the shift. It doesn't, the remote ham software doesn't always detect that it's moved off of a, a plus or minus shift. And so you have to, even though it says simplex there, you have to change it to plus and then back to simplex. So if you ever see it acting weird, sometimes you need to do that.
DX.
Oh, you can also set audio alerts when you have a DX entry that you haven't picked up before. So obviously it's picking up again. You can see that scroll by right there. So we got France going on right now. Let's look at the waterfall. So there's the live waterfall.
Boy, that's busy.
Well, ignore the part at the bottom.
Okay.
But what you can look at is the part that's filling up above it.
DX.
So watch this box down here. You can see because I've worked all states, I took them out of my alerts so they don't bother me. And now I just have it for countries. So Hawaii, actually, I picked up I think it was
I
the
don't want to hear it.
Air Force.
I want me to thank you to work off stage.
15 minutes.
So let me pull back up. Let me pull back up my presentation, and I'll show you a little more. So, just some stats that I pulled up out of QRZ and Logbook of the World. So my first FT8 worked all states QSL was September 25th, 2017, and that was Florida. My worked all states, I hit Delaware on October 17th, 2017. So this is the Logbook of the World, the Logbook of the World setup. So digital and FT8, and then mixed with that. I'm working on DXCC right now. I think I had 54 DX entries right now. So.
And I'm just going to reiterate, you're doing all of this with the club radio.
Right. The only ham radio I have at my house is an HT,
DX.
a VX7R. So this is all with, well, up until recently.
So you broke it. Too many times? Hawaii. I mean, who would want to do that?
That must have been what it was.
So,
I got a question in the audience.
yes.
Okay, you say it's not very doing, but it seems like what you're doing is saying, can you hear me? Yes, I hear you, and Bob. Is there a bigger application for this, like for emergency communications? If something is important, is there a way to flag and say, this is real, this isn't arbitrary or academic, can you hear me?
I think you can add like alerts for certain text, and you don't have to just send that information. You can also exchange, small short form messages. They can't be very long. I don't remember what I think it's like 12 characters, including spaces and all, in a conversation.
The virtue of this is it can get out when other modes can't, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, what is it, JT65 can go even lower than this can, but the transmit receive cycles are like a minute long, which is, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that much.
So they're really, these kind of modes were like designed for like meteor scatter originally, and stuff like that, or bouncing off of airplanes, microwave contacts, moon bounce, that kind of stuff. And what happened was, people who like doing VX chasing discovered that they could do these things and get a really low noise ratio, lower than they could hear it.
In the doldrums of the sunset outside.
Correct, and so you wind up with JT65, which has got a minute turnaround cycle, which is just for him forever. And then, so it comes up with a 15-second turnaround. And so these people that want to go chase DX, everybody is here. Everybody is here. TSK31 is dead. Gritty is dead. Everybody is there. 15-second turnaround to get a QSO done in 90 seconds is probably confirmed in LOTW the same day.
Yep, because they have it automatically set, most of these people, to log to the world.
Yeah, if you want to rack shoot, you got to get a skin.
Yes.
Well, I was just going to ask, are those restrictions just for DX, just for contesting?
No,
That's all the time. Okay.
it's all the time.
So they don't have a fun version?
Well,
I mean, do they have a rack shoot?
So these are the standard messages.
Yeah.
You can add your own in here. Thanks, 73, good luck. You can add other items in here. It doesn't have to, and it's rare, but you do see people that you know,
So they sent out an
Use
extra
that.
12 characters, huh?
yeah.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, so audio, you can get audio alerts, etc. So let me pull up.
Chris, you got a question back there.
Oh, who else?
Were you on the other night when they did their pseudo, the expedition test?
No.
I was, I made my first contact.
Oh, on FT8? Nice.
So if you think this is not going to be used in the future, they've come up with a version of this for the expeditions. And the expedition transmitting can send 5 messages at once. They can reply to 5 stations at once.
So
And of
it's
course, they can,
it's even worse than that, right?
Yeah.
This software orders the line for me of being almost like evil. Because you can, if you wanted to, if you were swift enough about it, you could just leave your rig on, leave ATX alert on, and you can have macros run even when you're not at home. You can just scrape every non-confirmed location that you
well,
need.
it's not, it won't run automatically.
No, you can do it, yes. You can do it.
You got hacking.
Well,
It's
yeah,
not-
other
it's not
software.
terribly bad hacking either, right? So if you have the account, you can set up an automated response system with this stuff. So here's PSK recorder just since I've been here tonight, and this is live, so you can see this is from Jim's rig at his house.
Woo!
So yeah, so
Hey, shut up. You don't need that. No,
What color code did he mean?
I think it's the band. So I think it's blue is for 40 meters because that's what I was on.
Did you make a contact real quick?
Yeah, I sent out a CQ. Let's see if anybody responded. Now, one thing that it will do though is if you send CQ too many times, it'll kind of stop the transmission so you don't, run away and transmit. So it will stop that, to keep you from just letting it run incessantly. But let's see if we can pick up one of these connections. So I double click on that. It responds to his CQ with my grid square, his or her CQ. It'll fill in information down here. So we got Minnesota. Let's see if they respond. This is a true live demo. We'll see if it actually works while I'm sitting here.
That green expanding bar, is that actually transmitting?
That's just a countdown. That's the 15-second countdown. So right now we're in a receive cycle for 15 seconds.
Far left to there, it says receive, and then it says transmit.
Yeah, so now it's transmitting and it'll do that for 15 seconds. So you can see right now I'm operating on split because I'm transmitting on a different subaudible than I'm receiving on.
How do the 2 stations know who's split where?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna.
So the split doesn't really matter. It's just so you're not like filling up their
Like he's gonna know where you're listening, right?
But the software
Right.
looks for the call.
The software picks up the subaudible tone, and so if they were to respond and not use split, they would transmit on the same tone that I was transmitting on. Sometimes it's easier to pick them out if we're not doing it on the same subaudible tone, so that's why they recommend doing split. So you see, it'll keep doing that until they respond or you reach the limit, the runaway transmit watchdog. So we'll see if they respond.
I do know.
Does anybody have any other questions?
I do know one ham who's gone to this, but he's having problems hearing anymore. And it's a really great sort of thing if you have a problem hearing, use to code. And this sort of thing kind of gives you a way to keep making contact, kind of keep it going.
Or if you're at work and it runs in the background.
Yeah, most of my daylight stuff is working from home.
Can you, turn up the speaker and let them hear what it sounds like?
Yeah. I have to, it won't work while I'm doing it because it's piped through virtual audio cable, but,
You don't, I got it.
okay. I lost it's not picking up right now. Anyway, I got this.
Yeah, I didn't see details.
That's what, yeah, that's what it sounds like.
So you're that guy.
Those cones are wiggling.
Can you monitor if you don't have a transmitter, but you have like an RTL SDR dongle, you can receive just,
Yeah,
and just.
you probably can, as long as it's, the reason why you use the virtual audio cable is so you get it kind of unfiltered, you know, so.
Because I just installed it on Raspberry Pi. And, I wanted to see if I can just receive. The new one had a name on it.
You don't see anything else you need. You need the software that run up. This is all I saw there.
All right, let's try this again.
Like two battle machines.
It's not without bugs. Sometimes you have to back out of it and then get back into it. It's really frustrating when you've just initiated a contact with somebody that you need and then the software acts up and then you have to disconnect and then they're gone. Let's try again. Let's try this. Oh, here, let's go big. Let's go long. So I'm going to click on their decode in the list on the left. So I sent them, so it's now I've tuned to receive their subaudible tones. So I can see whatever other conversations they're having, assuming they're doing on the same subaudible tone. So we'll try Columbia. We'll see if. So you see right here, it had the little B4 on it. That's because I worked them already. So that way I. There's a really active Facebook group for FT8, and those guys are very chatty. I had to turn off notifications for it. It's getting a lot of messages.
They gotta make up for having.
So there's another Romania.
I had to do that with G Protect. GoDaddy said I didn't have any room.
The other thing that I set up, so I can know if I'm getting out is I use a program called Ham Alerts, which monitors PSK recorder and some other things. So when I'm transmitting, I'll get notices or I'll get alerts that somebody in PSK recorder picked me up, so I can make sure that I'm making it out.
It's called Ham
Alert. They have a Android and I think iPhone application, and they have a website. You can get email notifications and whatnot. So they're not really responding, but they're communicating, trying to communicate with other folks. They may be. Let's try Texas. Let's see if we can get one going. Does anybody have any other questions?
When Romania came up, it had an asterisk next to it.
It's because they were calling DX.
Armenia?
Romania.
Oh, Romania.
Yeah.
I got a question, Chris.
Yeah.
So when that thing gives a signal report, how does it know what the signal report
So it's let's see. How does
is? Is it
that?
really giving variable signal reports to good
So
and bad?
it's decoding it right here on the left-hand side. So when I double click on it, I am seeing, that's what my decoder is picking up as their signal report.
So it's, okay.
So these are all the signal reports for all the things that it's hearing on the
Okay,
frequency.
so it's true.
Yeah.
You want to say a word about setting the time on your computer, how
Yes.
critical that is?
Yes. So this works because you also have to have, and I have running down here, I have a piece of software to synchronize my time. Right here, network time synchronization. This will not work if your time on your laptop is too far off from what the actual time is. So it's pretty important that you install or you have something on there that's going to synchronize your time on your laptop on a regular basis. This one's just called network time synchronization.
You can do it with the GPS.
Nettime 3.14, timesynctool.com. So, anybody else? I don't know if this guy's going to respond. He's communicating with other people.
See, that's my problem. Nobody responds to the station. It's your radio.
You can use this across all the bands,
Yeah, so
tech can use this too.
I mean, there's all the frequencies. Those are the same that you see in. Well, so these frequencies are in the QST article from January. If you want to look at it, this is just a little shortcut to, assuming because you set this software up to interact with either your local rig or the RemoteHams software, and so the green means it's connected. You still, and I promise, I always tune when I. One band, unless, because Jim's radio doesn't, he doesn't have a tuner set up on it. But you do want to make sure you tune so you're getting, proper SWR.
What does it mean when they're first?
So I think that's when they are calling CQ for DXCC entry. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, and you do have to go in, and you can set alerts in here. You can set alerts in here, and you can also, I believe, set them up here to just tell you if you've worked already. The only problem with setting them down here is you have to go in and update them every so often, to get the audio alerts and things like that. So, anybody else?
All right, any other questions? No? Good lively debate?
Where do you get the program?
So,
Which one?
yeah, so WSJT-X, you can, I think the link is, so the guy, Joe Taylor, is out of Princeton, and it's some link from Princeton where he has all the software for that. JT Alert X I got from, I believe it's hamapps.com. They have this, and you download a call sign database, or what is it? There are a couple different files that you download to work with JT Alert X. And then, of course, the RemoteHams software you get from the RemoteHams website to make this happen.
So every member of the club is automatically able to log in to our RemoteHams station when it's working, right? But everybody at home with a Windows computer can do everything that you're seeing. Or a Mac running a Windows emulator.
No, Raspberry Pi.
RemoteHams will run on it.
On your own station.
On your own station, use whatever you want, yes.
Windows and Android.
Correct. All right, any other questions for Chris?
What's that? Well, so I have it piping directly in through virtual audio cable, so I don't really play with the volume. You mean on the remote rig, or it's piping directly into the software. So
I've worked well JT65, I have been a couple of contacts with FT8. And most of them run 50 watts. But,
Yeah.
I was getting, I go on CQ and I got any responses. And somebody mentioned to me in the group that, crank it up to 100 watts, and then control the volume. Now, this is my.
That's correct.
This is my.
That's correct. You want to maximize, you want to put your tower. So, all right, let's talk about digital mode, right? So what you don't want to do is set your power to 25 watts and then watch your ALC come right up. That's bad. That's really bad, okay? What you want to do is you want to set your power all the way up to 100 watts or whatever it can do, and then you adjust the audio level being sent to your radio, and you adjust that for the power output. And if, as you're adjusting that, so let's say you get to 20 watts output, if you see that ALC ticking at all, I don't care whether you're 20 watts or 50 watts, stop and go backwards. You do not want ALC kicking in at all with any of your digital transmissions. That's a bad risk, okay? So, so when you're adjusting, when you're trying to do that stuff, a lot of people just go, well, I'm going to set my power at 25 and I don't care about my audio level. And what happens is you're actually putting out an awful signal. ALC is kicking in and just tearing it apart. And you think you're doing the right thing, but you're not. You're just splattering everywhere with 25 watts. So the important part is really 100 watts, get a clean signal, never ever want to see ALC ticking at all, and you know you're good. If you don't see ALC moving, you got some room to play with, but then be respectful, right? This mode, you'll get yelled at if you're doing more than 20 watts, right? So. All right, any other questions, thoughts, comments? All right, thank you, Chris. Appreciate it very much. And that's it. That's it. Y'all are free to leave. Of course,